Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of our Acadiana Business Resource webinars. These webinars are brought to you by business resource partners from across the Acadiana region, including One Acadiana, LEDA, Opportunity Machine, the Downtown Development Authority, the Louisiana Small Business Development Center at UL Lafayette, Acadiana Workforce Solutions, the United Way of Acadiana, and other local chambers and economic development offices, including the Acadia Parish Chamber of Commerce and Vermilion Economic Development Alliance. We have come together to support Acadiana's business community, particularly our small businesses, in response to COVID-19 by hosting a series of webinars on timely and relevant topics. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Heidi Melancon, Director of the Louisiana Small Business Development Center at UL Lafayette, for a presentation on disaster loans and other SBA resources. Heidi?
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Heidi Melancon. I am the director at the Louisiana Small Business Development Center at UL Lafayette. We are a resource partner of SBA, and in these unprecedented times, we are called to assist with disaster efforts, to inform, educate, and help with any process that we can facilitate these loan process. Next slide, Andre. This is just a declaration from the administrator of SBA, just giving that paramount of what's going to happen with this loan process. Next slide. So the economic injury disaster loan basics, who's eligible to apply? Pretty much any small business, agricultural cooperative, aquaculture business, and most nonprofits organizations are able to apply for this loan. If you can feed it or water it, you will be assisted through the farm cooperative with USDA. So that kind of tells you who can apply for it. And this is a working capital loan, which we'll get into another slide. And who's directed the affected disasters? Pretty much everything at this point. I think all states are going to be able to be declared as a disaster. And then any type of business that is directly or indirectly related to an industry will be able to apply. And you can see the example at the bottom. A manufacturer of a widget may be eligible, but also the wholesaler and the retailer of the product as well. So you'll see scenarios like this where in a triangle, all business operations will be able to apply for this loan. Next slide. So what is the criteria for this loan for COVID-19? Applicants must have an acceptable credit history to SBA. They're not going to at any point name a credit score that will apply because, of course, a 620 may actually be something different across the board. So you're never going to see a credit score in writing. So everyone is still encouraged to apply for this loan, and that can be fleshed out with a loan officer at a later time. SBA must determine that applicant businesses have the ability to repay this loan. It wouldn't be in your best interest to be able to take this loan if you can't cash flow it. So loan officers will be looking at cash in and cash out based on the information that you submit. And of course, on the eligibility, all the businesses must be physically located in the declared parishes that have suffered from working capital losses due to this disaster. Next slide. So the terms of the loan, how much can I borrow? This loan is going to go up to $2 million, and you'll be working with the loan officer. There's not going to be a blank that's going to say, this is how much I'm going to get. It's really going to be based on the documents that you submit, and then also what you're going to be able to declare based on that profit and loss statement and past taxes. Interest rates for the disaster in this time are 3.75 for small businesses, and which up to 30 years. And then on nonprofits, I don't think it states it on this one, but it's 2.75 for nonprofits. Eligibility for working capital loans are based on size. If there are any interested parties that may be on the larger side, we're going to refer to the Census Bureau of determining whether you are a small business, and it's either going to be on the number of employees that you have or your gross revenue, and we can get you that information at a later time. So how can I use these funds? These are working capital loans, so this will be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable that you would have ordinarily been able to pay if this disaster did not occur. So the loans are not to replace your profits or to expand. They're really to meet those obligations that you no longer can meet because of this disaster. Next slide. The terms of the loan. So what are the collateral requirements? The unsecured, you can borrow up to $25,000 unsecured. Anything over $25,000, collateral will be taken on those loans, and real estate will be considered. And actually, that's probably going to be something you'll meet and discuss with a loan officer, because they're not going to decline these loans for not having lack of collateral. But of course, they're looking to work with you so that they can get paid back. Just remember that this money is coming directly from the Treasury Department straight into your bank account. And so they want to do what they can to get money in your hands so that you can continue to move on with your business operation. Next slide. So what kind of small businesses can apply? I've had this question yesterday on eligibility, but here's a few examples that they are listing in terms of hotels, recreational facilities, charter boat companies, sport vendors, owners of rental property. You may not be able to apply if you are a real estate developer in terms of maybe subdividing a subdivision, but of course, rental property, thankfully, is included in this. Also, souvenir shops, travel agencies, and wholesalers. So for the most part, like I said, beyond that, as we said in previous slide, farming operations will not be able to be considered for this. What other criteria is involved? As we said before, a physical presence. You cannot apply with a PO box. You will have to state and prove that you have a physical presence in the disaster declared area. Next slide. SBA's economic funds, like I said, are going to come directly from the U.S. Treasury Department. There will be no closing costs. There's no closing process. As I said, it's going to be going straight into your bank account. I had a call yesterday from an attorney wanting to assist with closing docs. There is going to be none of that process. So it's going to be very seamless. And they do not have to go through any type of bank to do this. And as you can see on the slide and where you can apply, the disasterloan.sba.gov. In these times, this is the only time that SBA will let you borrow money directly. It's true only in disaster times. So there is no cost to apply. In fact, there's no obligation to take the loan if it's offered. And even if you decline the loan, you're going to have up to 6 months to change your mind. Because of course, our small business owners are suffering right now. And to think of taking on another obligation is very daunting. And so I can completely understand that, but just apply, because then you can make up your mind at that point, because anything can change from this month to the next month. And we'd rather you be in the queue. And like we said, the maximum unsecured amount is going to be $25,000. Applicants can have an existing SBA disaster loan. And in fact, those loans are going to be furloughed for now. They will be deferred. So that's good news for those that may have been going through other disasters. And then also you still can apply for this economic disaster. And that another one prior is not going to prevent you from actually taking this one. You just cannot consolidate the loans. You cannot use this loan to pay off, to consolidate any type of prior debt that you may have had before. So let's talk about the basic filing requirements. And as of yesterday, some of this information has already changed. So completed SBA loan application, you have two forms. You have Form 5 and Form 5C. What's nice, I've had lots of questions from sole proprietors. Yes, sole proprietors can apply for this loan. It's just the difference of filing a different form from a corporation or an LLC. So a Form 5 is going to be what you fill out if you're an LLC, S Corp, corporation. And a Form 5C is going to be the form that you fill out as a sole proprietor. And when you get into the loan portal, you'll see once you indicate that you're a sole proprietor, there will be a chance for you to be able to switch over to the two forms. Also, the tax information, the authorization from the IRS 4506T. As of yesterday, you do not necessarily have to have this in order to go forward with the application. They will collect it from you at a later time, but this will not hold up your application if you don't complete the 4506T. So keep that in mind as an applicant. And they will need it from all principals and affiliates of other companies that you have. Complete copies of the most recent tax returns. There again, as of yesterday, if you do not have recent tax returns, go forward with your application. It will not hold up the application if you have not completed your taxes or you have incomplete data. So that's good news for those that may not be organized at this time, and it gives you a little bit more time to be able to submit this, or a loan officer may ask for this information at a later time. Schedule of liabilities, that's a form 2202. If your CPA is preparing your documents, you do not need to use SBA's documents necessarily. They're there for you as a guide. But that schedule of liability is going to be any of those fixed expenses that you have, rent. Be comprehensive. If you're missing a line of credit payment, as comprehensive as you can, the better it will be for you. Also, personal financial statement, that's form 413 with SBA. And other information may also be requested as you go through the process. But the most important thing is to get in the portal, apply, so that you're in the queue. It's going to be a first come, first served basis. So we don't want you to be locked out of this application process. I did have a few questions yesterday about paper applications. And there is a process to apply via mail if that is where you're most comfortable. Route to take, but just know that that will be separate, and probably 99% of the applications will be submitted through the portal, and that's going to be the quickest way to have your information looked at. Just know that SBA, they're ramping up right now. They're adding more people to help with this process. They are going to adapt to this need for small business owners, so they're going as quickly as they can to be able to process. And in fact, in other states, I've already heard that they're rolling with this process. So we're going to get the help we need for our small businesses as soon as possible. Next slide. So other information that may be requested, like we said, I had questions about if you have affiliate businesses. As you get into the application, you will see an opportunity to add additional companies that you are affiliated with. And as you go through the process, they're going to look at all of your information to make a determination, because it could be that on your balance sheet of another company, you're flush with more capital that could help you in this. This is a subsidized rate that they are offering. And if you do have the means to help in this regard, they're going to probably suggest that that might be used. But just know that this is probably an unprecedented time where they're going to be very liberal in helping our business owners. And that's what they want to do. They want to get this money into your hands so that you can meet the obligations that you were missing out because of this disaster. If the most recent tax return, like we said, a year in profit and loss statement and a balance sheet could replace your federal income tax return if you're not completed with it. And a current year-to-date profit and loss statement would also be very helpful. The more information you provide, the more comprehensive you are, the easier it is going to be for a loan officer to make a determination about your application. Also, there is a form that you can also use for your monthly sales figures. We will make that available. This is typically when you're going back for money, because they do have a process that you can go back in and request more money if it's not enough to meet the needs. Let's see, next slide. Just to go over ineligible entities. I talked about agricultural enterprises, religious organizations, charitable organizations. Gambling concerns are not going to be considered: casinos, racetracks. And I'm thinking if there's anything else on that part. And then next slide. So here's some information of how to apply. I'm hoping most business owners have taken a look at it, but this is the URL, the disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA will get you directly into the portal. Like we said, paper loan applications can be downloaded on the website. And then there is an address included if you do choose to go snail mail as well. Disaster loan information. One of the things on a conference call yesterday, if you forget a password or you have trouble, you're going to have to use the 1-800 number if you can't get help through some of the resource partners, but there is a 1-800 number, and that SBA disaster customer service at sba.gov for emails. They're going to do everything possible to facilitate this, to get you that help. But just know that everybody is in the same boat, and that they have asked and they have stressed that everybody be patient as much as you can. Next slide. As we said, we offer free assistance in preparing financial records, projections. Oh, one thing too, on startups, one of the questions we had yesterday was that projections could be used in a startup, and it could be a narrative that you may have to come up with so that we can prove that perhaps you're in the beginning, you took a loan a couple of months ago and you're just starting. Well, we may have to recreate some of your financial records to accompany your application, but just know that you can get help through any of SBA's resource partners, and as also the resource partners that are included on this call as well. Next slide. I can't stress to get your application in as soon as possible. Check all of your filing requirements. Try to be as prepared as possible. Some of the reasons for delays will be missing information. So make sure to complete all filing requirements. Like we said, don't worry about the tax returns, and don't worry about the IRS authorization. That can be done at a later time. However, if you are prepared, send it. The more prepared you are, the better it will be for you getting that help. If more funds, like I said, there is a process. Don't fear that if you can't get everything you need up front, there will be a way to go forward. However, let's be as comprehensive as possible so that we don't have to go back and ask for more funds. And just note, if you are denied in this request, you still are given up to 6 months in which you can provide new information. You can go back to an SBDC to repackage your loan, and they will continue to reconsider your request as well. And I think that might be the end of the slides, Andre. Yeah, I think we leave enough time for questions right now.
Yes, thank you, Heidi. So at this point, we have about 12 minutes left for the Q&A. Destin Ortego of Opportunity Machine will be helping to facilitate the Q&A portion. Please continue to enter your questions into the chat bot if you're on the WebEx, and we will get to as many as we can. If we do not have time to get to your question, we will be following up after the webinar, and we will be sharing contact information as well. Destin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Andre. So the first question we have came from Ann. She just wants to clarify, are all the parishes in the state declared disaster locations?
The whole state has been declared a disaster, so that's no problem. I think the whole country will be at this point.
The next one comes from Robert. He asked if bars and AG establishments can apply.
I have seen nothing that says that a bar cannot apply. I think if anything, if there's any question, please go ahead and submit that application. But at this point, nothing has indicated that a bar could not apply.
Then Lori wanted to know how long the other loans will be furloughed. Specifically, they have one from Katrina.
I want to say I heard 6 months to a year. I don't know exactly, but it's in that time frame.
Then Corey asked if one person has multiple LLCs, can each LLC apply?
Yes, there's an opportunity within the application to add the affiliate businesses that you have. So once you're in that, I did have one client that, read it carefully, because when you're adding the application, they were actually repeating their same company. If you put that you're affiliated with another company, then you're going to have to provide the information on each of the companies that you have.
Okay. Then Anna asked again, if there's a way to look at the requirements before you enter the online application process.
Yes, all information is on SBA's website. We have been sending it out as well. They can also contact me with any questions, or any of the resource partners probably have access to these forms and information. I think it's a good idea to get a copy of the application prior to starting the process. That way it's not slowing you up. You can gather your information. You're not going to get timed out in the portal, and that way you can process it as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, and at lafayette.org/SBA loan, we put together some fairly easy to read infographics with regarding all of the requirements that are needed and paperwork and documents that are needed before you fill out the application. Let's see. Corey asked, for nonprofits, does the tax exempt designation matter at all?
No, nonprofits have to upload their tax information. Now that could change, but as of yesterday, unfortunately, nonprofits do have to upload their tax information as opposed to for-profit businesses.
And Ann posed a really good question regarding nonprofits. So let's say if there's a lack of fundraising opportunities for some unforeseen amount of time, how will SBA evaluate that type of situation?
That's going to come from the information that you submit, tax returns. There is a chance for a narrative in the application that you can detail. Be mindful, in addition to nonprofits, be mindful of seasonality. Some companies make all their money in the first half of the year. There is a chance for a narrative that you can explain that. That way that could be considered, because of course most nonprofits rely on their fundraising efforts to fund their operation through the year. But yes, that's all going to be determined on those schedules that you submit, tax returns, profit and loss statements, any information you can provide to have that story available for the loan officer.
Okay. We have a number of questions coming in right now. Let's see. Robert also asked, in the SBA loan application instructions, it appears as though affiliated businesses or ones owning or owned by the business applying. Is this not the case?
No. In fact, I had a business owner, if they're showing on it that you have ownership in another company, I'm not going to get in the weeds of those questions. Those are something we can do offline, but they do have a chance to add that information.
Okay. Todd asked, if a business closes, is payroll for employees one of the things employers use for this loan?
Yes, payroll is one of the fixed expenses that you usually have. And you can include payroll, accounts payable, rent, insurance, a line of credit payment. Think of any of your regular obligations that you have every month.
Lisa asked, if your business suffered a loss last year, is that an automatic denial?
No, I wouldn't say no, because this could have been the year that, you've got proof that you were going to be reviving that company. I still apply because, people do have off years, and you still can borrow to meet those obligations. However, this loan cannot be used to probably pump up a company that was probably already on life support. But there again, I'm encouraging everybody to apply. Let the loan officer flesh that out with you, because this is your chance to get that working capital that perhaps you were already on a rebound. And there could be letters of intent that you could submit. You may have gotten a contract, even though you had an off year last year, that you could also prove that you were going to be rebounding this year.
Robert wants to know if new businesses less than a year old can qualify.
Yes, there's, like I said, it may be a little bit trickier in having to create some projections, just showing what you may have lost out on. But of course, if you've taken a loan and you just started your operations, you are definitely in business. It may be a little difficult for I'm going to say an organic business just starting up in the last month without a lot of paperwork, but those that have definitely started within the year can apply.
Steven started his application, but he made an error in identifying company. He labeled it as a corporation, and it's in fact a LLC. Seems to have trouble backtracking to correct it or start over. He would like you to please advise, will this affect his application?
No, in fact, if that would definitely be a question if he wants to contact me. I've helped a few people get back on track that we can take offline and help him.
Oh, great. Jory wants to know what the max number of employees that you can have and at which day do you use to consider this?
There is a link from that we could probably have Andre send out from the Census Bureau, because some industries it's going to be based on your North American industry classification system. It's either going to be, if they're larger, on the larger side, it's going to either be based on revenue or the number of employees, and it's going to differ for all next codes.
Okay. And Todd asked, if there are multiple owners for one company, do they all have to input their personal info to apply?
The personal financial statement, is that what they're asking?
They just said personal info. If Todd, you'd like to clarify in the chat box.
Well, what we could do is I have that written down from Todd, but we'll find out if it's only 51% that has to put it. But I want to say that probably the more the better. But if they're marginally owners in the company, it's definitely going to be based on the 51% for sure.
Okay. And he did say yes, personal finances.
Yeah, personal financial statement.
Okay. Nikki said that they know lots of business owners are reluctant to apply because of credit scores. Do you know anything about that minimum requirement?
There is no score that's going to be stated because a 620 can be across the board, could be different for each business owner. If it's definitely questionable, it would be something maybe to discuss with a loan officer, because you never know. There could be a way that they could work it out. I would still apply because at least they know that they've tried and anything they can do to keep their business going. But, they really aren't going to publish a score. But, if it's something that's on life support, then, it may be a hard call to get that loan.
And two more questions. I know that you mentioned the 5C form, but we have somebody who asked, 1099 worker does not have a company registered with the Secretary of State, but has an EIN number apply.
Yes, I would. I would probably, as a 1099, I'm assuming they are considered a sole proprietor. I would still apply and take the sole proprietor route using a 1099. Absolutely. If they've got tax records that can support that income, it's definitely something. I'm not a loan officer, and really this is more informational, but I still would apply and let the loan officer flesh it out with them.
Okay. And then the last question, are there any laws currently that show the obligations of small business for paying employees for the time at home due to the stay-at-home order?
There is some information that I've gotten on that level about, completely opposite of SBA. But what we could do is maybe push that out from Andre, that he can send it out to business owners. But that's not going to be contained in the SBA information.
Okay, that's it for questions.
Okay.
Right. Heidi, I'm going to skip ahead to your contact information. If you
Great. And please feel free to reach out to me. We are checking messages, emails, and trying to get as many questions answered. We've been in constant contact with SBA. So things change, information changes daily. Thank you.
And here's the SBA contact information as well. We will be sending out the PowerPoint slides to everyone, so you have the contact info. And once again, if you continue to have questions, we will try to get you those answers as quickly as we can. So thanks again to Heidi for that presentation.